Hi everybody out there in Kickstarter land. I'm Ellen E.J. Lefavour, and I'm here to talk about a new Kickstarter project that I'm getting ready to launch that I'm really excited about, and I hope you are too. It's a book called I See Moolongz, and it's a strange and wonderful guide to our inner power as told by the Moolongz. These are Moolongz here. Moolongz are a species of highly evolved beings that come from this planet here, which is the perfect planet out in the galaxy of one, many hundreds of light years away from here. Here are some more Moolongz, so you can see what they look like. Aren't they really just amazing creatures? They are really highly evolved. Perfect planet is so perfect. It's perfect in every way. They all get along. They communicate in mind. They can transport from one place to another at will. Whatever they want, they just think, and it immediately comes into being. They live in total peace, harmony, joy. Their life is just perfect. Their climate is perfect. There's nothing that you could want or it's perfect. So one day this young Moolongz decides that as perfect as life is here on Perfect Planet, it seems like there's something missing from his life. He can't imagine what it could be, but he remembers stories that the elders have told about other Moolongz that have transported to other planets and other galaxies in the past, and he starts thinking, I want to travel. I want to go meet other highly evolved beings and ask them questions and learn new things and have new experiences and have an adventure. So he decides that's what he's going to do. And he starts thinking in his mind and visualizing this planet and imagining what it's going to be like and what it's going to feel like and what the people are going to be like and what he's going to learn and how the experience is going to be. And then all of a sudden, like that, he starts transporting and he starts spinning through the galaxies over and over and over again, from galaxy to galaxy to galaxy, until all of a sudden he finds himself here on planet Earth in Antarctica with penguins. He immediately starts to think to the penguins in the pure and loving way that Moolongz do, greeting them and telling them who he is and asking who they are. And they just stare at him because they're penguins and they don't understand. But meanwhile, he thinks they're the beings of the planet. So he's a little disillusioned and alarmed, and it's really cold there, so he decides he's going to transport someplace else. So he keeps transporting different places around Earth, and the more he transports and the more he stops, the more he encounters us, human beings. But we can't see him because he's a highly evolved being, and he vibrates at such a high frequency that he's invisible to all except the highly evolved human beings, so most can't see him. So he tries to talk to us, and nobody can see him and nobody can hear him because he talks in mind. He comes across cats and dogs. Well, they can see him or they can sense him, but they can't really understand what he's saying. They just bark at him and stare at him, and he has no interaction. He finds himself dropping down in the Middle East, in the middle of a huge car-bombing explosion. He sees bodies getting scattered everywhere. Blood, he doesn't even know what blood is, but there's red liquid spouting everywhere, and people are screaming, and there's just this intense terror and grief and pain going on that he's never experienced in his life. He has no idea what it is, but it's horrifying to him. And all of a sudden, he transports away from there, and he finds himself in a place where he just thinks, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go back to Perfect Planet. This place is just it's too scary and horrible here. So he starts thinking about home, but he doesn't go anywhere. What he doesn't realize is because he's been surrounded by all of these negative energy forces, he's lost connection with his own inner power, and so he can't get home. So he continues traveling on, and all of a sudden he's going across the planet Earth, and he encounters this sense of peace and joy, and just it feels like home coming up to him. So he goes down to that spot, and when he does, he encounters the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama, of course, vibrates at the same frequency as he, so they can sit and they have this great and wonderful conversation. They can see each other, they greet each other, they have this wonderful, loving conversation, and the Dalai Lama explains to him all about the human condition and what living on life is about, and about compassion and empathy and laughing in the face of adversity, which Freeland Mutable doesn't understand at all because they have no mouths and they make no noise, so he can't comprehend laughing. Or a lot of what the Dalai Lama is talking about. Meanwhile, back on Perfect Planet, Mutable has a girlfriend, or a dear friend from childhood, named Freelang. Now, it turns out that they had started, before he left to go on his adventure, started to realize that they were maybe the special Moolongz for each other. And she, meanwhile, is back home, and she's really starting to miss him, and she's really starting to get the sense that something's not quite right where he is. So she's thinking about him and thinking about wanting them to be together again and missing him and thinking about him and loving him, and all of a sudden, boom, she starts transporting and not wanting to at all. She doesn't want to go to Earth, but anyway, she's transporting. She finds herself flopping down in Earth. Well, she lands in, she's here in Alaska, and she runs into an Inuit Eskimo. And they, of course, are more evolved. They're not all caught up in the worldly stuff that a lot of the rest of us are. So he can see her. He doesn't know what in the world she is, and can't understand. She's asking him questions, and he's just baffled because he can hear the questions in his mind, but not in his ears, and he doesn't know what she is. But she keeps talking to him, and eventually he responds back in mind, and they carry on the conversation. And come to find out, he is not seeing Mutago, so she transports on again. She goes on and she meets young children, and the young children can see her, and she thinks it's so wonderful because they look up and they point up to her and they say, "Look," and they all start to laugh, and they're just so excited to see her. And she thinks to them, and they think back to her, and she's so enamored by their childlike laughter, which she doesn't understand what it is. And then she starts to think about it, and then she mimics it in her own mind, and she does the giggling and the laughing back to them in her mind, and they giggle back to her, and it just ends up in this big giggle laughing fest. And she's amazed at these young beings and how on their planet it's the older Moolongz that teach the young ones about wisdom and about joy and about living fully, and how on this planet it's very odd because the older ones seem to be all worried and stressed out and fearful and caught up in all this kind of nonsense. And the little ones are so free and joyful and bubbly. So in this planet it seems like the little ones are supposed to teach the older ones how to live, but the older ones don't quite get it. So she moves on, transports again, and meets an American Indian, and has wonderful conversation with her. They can see each other, they talk, they tell each other a lot about their individual planets and lives and experiences. Goes on, keeps trying to find Mutago, can't find him, starts to get worried. She thinks, here I am on this planet, and I'm never going to find him. And maybe he's left me, maybe he's gone back to Perfect Planet. She starts to worry. And as she starts to worry, she starts to get sad. And as she starts to get sad, she starts to cry. And she didn't know she could cry. There's no, Moolongz don't ever cry. There's no reason to cry. So she's crying, but all of a sudden she stops and she looks at where she is. She looks around herself, and she's in this incredibly beautiful place. Look at that, incredibly gorgeous. There's this amazing sunset going on around her. And she just stops and she takes it in, and she says, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And she starts to breathe in and she starts to breathe out, and she starts to get her focus back, and her sadness goes away, and she realizes that Moolongz is very nearby, and they're gonna connect soon. Meanwhile, Mutago goes right down the road a little bit. He's wandering through the woods, and he's again feeling like he's never going to get home. He's going to wander here for eternity. He's never going to get back to Perfect Planet. He gets sad. He starts crying again. As he's wandering along, he suddenly feels this presence coming out of this very large boulder. And there's this really large boulder that someone has carved a message on, and the message says, "Spiritual power." And he sees the boulder, and all of a sudden, he remembers what he's missing. He's disconnected from his spiritual power. He's disconnected from his inner power, and that's why he can't get home. So he moves on to another peaceful place, and he sits and he just meditates on the beautiful river and the beach across the way and the little village around him. And he realizes that his power is more and more than it's ever been before because of all the experiences he's had, and he knows he can now go home. But all of a sudden he feels this really strong presence, familiar presence, and he turns, and there's Freelang. And the two of them go to each other and greet face to face, and then they both start crying tears of joy because they're so overjoyed to see each other, and she's so happy to find him, and he's so happy to have her be there. So they decide that they're going to put their minds together and go back to Perfect Planet where it's perfect and where everything's wonderful, and they've had enough of this craziness. But then, almost in unison, at the same time, they stop and they look at each other, and they think, no, we can't go back to Perfect Planet. We have to stay here. These beings need our help. And so they go back to a place where they had previously been that was very peaceful, and Mutago presents her with his first egg. That's how they do it. They kind of create the egg and then they give it. There's no sex involved. Anyway, here she is with their first offspring hatching. They call him Earthlang in memory of for their new home. And then they go on and on, and they continue to multiply and multiply and multiply. And now, Moolongz have colonized the earth. They're everywhere. They're all over the place. Now, you may not be able to see them because only people who have become evolved can see them. But what they're doing is they're being around people at all times, and they're just focusing. They're focusing all their energy and all their attention on every human they see, and just telling them how perfect, what an unrepeatable and incredible miracle of the universe they are, how perfect they are, how they are filled with every bit of wisdom, power, and incredible gifts that they need to live the most amazing lives, joyful, fulfilled, and wonderful. And that's what they just keep doing. They keep focusing on humans. And what's happening is more and more humans are becoming evolved. And as they become more evolved, what do they say? Moolongz. Because they can now see the Moolongz. Their energy level has raised up so that Moolongz are no longer invisible to them. Now humans are starting to have communication with Moolongz, and we continue to evolve as a species, and it's all because of the Moolongz. And they teach us a lot in this book. They teach us how to meditate, they teach us how to visualize, how to bring about the things in our lives that we want to do. But they're here, and the Moolongz, there's nothing in the world that will make the Moolongz more happy than to hear everybody on Earth say, I see Moolongz. Well, I hope you'll look at my Kickstarter project. Check it out. Check out the book. It's wonderful. It's very exciting. This thing came out of the clear blue. It came out of nowhere. These beings came out of nowhere, and the whole story just kind of just came in. So the universe wants this out there. The universe wants people to be aware of this, and this is something kind of for all ages. I've had so many young people up to old people kind of reading the manuscript and looking at the images, and everyone's just really taken with them. They're really speaking to people. So we want this to go out and speak to as many people as possible, and I need your help to get this book published. So please donate. I've got lots of amazing gifts, and check them out, and let's let everybody see the Moolongz. Thank you so much. Bye.